Okay, so this is going to be the notes for lesson 3 on our midpoint and distance formula. Let's start with the warm-up. Right, so point N is on the line MO, right? So if I want to draw a little representation of this, we have the line MO, and we have the point N somewhere on it. And we're told that MN is going to be 2x. We have NO is going to be x minus 2, and then the whole thing is 2x plus 9. So we're solving for x. So we have 2x plus 9 equals 2x plus x minus 2. Combine like terms, so we're going to be left with just 2x plus 9. Doing 3x. We add the 2 plus the 1 is going to be 3x minus 2. So now, this is just a first semester question. We want to move our x's. So I'm going to move 2 x's from the left side to the right side. So we're at 9 equals x minus 2. Got to move that 2 now. We want to get that x by itself. So we get x equals 11. All right, that is not our answer. We're trying to figure out the total distance, and our total distance is just going to be, we're looking for mn, which is 2x, or 2 times 11, which would be 22. Right, and that's the answer to our the first question. Okay, so the first two formulas we're going to talk about in this lesson is going to be the midpoint and the segment bisector point. Right, so if we're talking about a midpoint, all it is going to be the point that divides my line segment into two equal pieces. Right, so if I draw a line segment here, we'll call this point x1, y1, and this point over here x2, y2. It doesn't matter. They're just saying like, hey, this is the point for that. This is my first point. Here's my second point. Okay, so first point, second point, I can switch them. It doesn't matter. All I'm going to do is take the average of my of my x's. So I want you to think average of x's and the average of my y's. Because you're just taking the two x's, add them together, divide by 2, and you're also taking the two y's and adding them to get divided by 2, right? A segment bisector is just a line that cuts through the midpoint of a line segment. Okay, so say we have a line segment like this. Hold on, before we move on to this, I should write the formula here, right? So this formula would apply to this point right there. If I wanted to find that point, that would be my midpoint. All right, so if I want to talk about a segment bisector, right? So if I have a segment here, a segment bisector would just go through the midpoint, be any line, ray, or segment that cuts through my midpoint here. Remember, we use dashes to indicate that these are two equal pieces, right? So the whole section is just cut in half with the midpoint. So again, we're going to go ahead and mark these as congruent. And its segment bisector just is any line, ray, or segment that cuts through that point. Okay. So example 1, we want to find the midpoint between A and B. A is -2, -3. B is -6, 1. So again, we're just using our formula here. We're going to take the average of my two x's. So I want to take my two x's and add them together. So we're going to do -2 plus -6, all divided by 2. We'll do the y's in blue. So we have -3 plus 1, all divided by 2. Okay, so if you owe someone $2 and you borrow another 6, you're going to owe that person $8. Let's do this in red. Sorry. So we have -8 divided by 2. And if you owe someone $3 and you pay them back $1, you're going to owe them $2. Okay. All right. So last thing we need to do is we're going to simplify this, right? -8 divided by 2 is going to be -4. So the x, my midpoint, is going to be -4. The midpoint for my y's is going to be -1. And that is the midpoint between those 2 points. Okay, so that's example 1. Example 2, same idea, but we're going to have to work it a little bit. Okay, so I'm telling you the midpoint of AB is 1, 2, right? The point M, all right, let's draw this out. So we have a line segment AB, and we're told that this is a midpoint. So this is going to be cut. These 2 points is going to be negative 2, 8. It's cutting my line segment AB into 2 equal pieces. Okay, and we're also told that the coordinates for A, whoops, sorry, I read the wrong number. The midpoint is 1, 2, and we're told that A is going to be negative 2, 8. Okay, we're trying to find this X and Y for B. Okay, we're just going to use the 2 formulas of my X formula and my Y formula. So I know that if I do negative 2 plus some X divided by 2 is going to equal 1, right? So all I'm doing is I'm looking at the X here, the X here, these two, the average of those two is going to be 1. We're going to do the same thing with our Y now. So I'm going to take 8 plus Y equals 2. We're going to solve for both of these, right? So the other formula, we want 8 plus Y equals 2 divided by 2. Okay, just solve for X and Y now. Okay, so we want to multiply both sides by 2. So we get negative 2 plus X equals 2. We want to get X by itself, so we have to get rid of that negative 2. So you have to add 2 to both sides. So you get X equals 2. So in my point for B, we're going to get 2 comma. Now we just need to find our Y. Okay, again, multiply both sides by 2. We're left with 8 plus Y equals 4. All right, we want to get rid of that 8 because we want Y by itself. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So get Y equals negative 4. And that is your midpoint for example 2. Okay. So the last thing is now we're going to be doing the distance formula or the Pythagorean theorem. Both of these formulas are going to work. So basically all we're doing is we're taking 2 points. We want to find the distance between 2 points. We'll call this x1, y1, and we'll do x2, y2. You're essentially going to be making a right triangle. Okay, so if you remember the Pythagorean theorem from middle school, you're just forcing a right triangle. Okay, so this distance here would be our A. Remember we said if it's a right triangle, we're going to go ahead and mark it as a right triangle. This distance, my height is going to be B. And the longest side of my right triangle is going to be the hypotenuse, or C. Okay, so there's a couple different ways we can think about this, right? I can either use my distance formula. So just be taking my 2 x's, finding the difference or subtracting them and squaring them, and then adding the same thing with my y's. Or I can take this distance squared plus this distance squared equals this distance squared. Right? There's a bunch of proofs that we can go over, but you should have covered this in middle school. I'm just going over it again just to make sure everything's crystal clear. Okay, so let's jump right into our example. So we have graph a right triangle with the points 8, negative 8, and negative 1, 4. Form the hypotenuse. Using these sides, find the distance between these points to the nearest tenth if possible, if necessary. Okay, so let's go and graph this. So the first point, we're going to go out to 8, negative 8. Oops, let's make this. So we have the point 8, negative 8. We can also do negative 1, 4. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to do it both ways. I'm going to use here. Just going to go ahead and draw my right triangle. We're trying to find that distance there. So easiest way to do it is draw a right triangle and count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This distance is 9. We have this distance of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We don't know what this distance is, so I'm going to call it c. Okay, so my formula would look something like this, where we go 9, remember it's just a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we can do 9 squared plus 12 squared equals c squared. Okay, well 9 squared is just 81. 12 squared is 144. You can use a calculator, right? If you have these all memorized, remember just the 1 squared is going to be 1, and 2 squared is going to be 4, and 3 squared is going to be 9, and 4 squared is 16. Then we have 25, 36, 49. 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. 10 squared is 100. Then we have 121, 144. And I always get these two mixed up. 169, and then 196. And then I think 15 is 225, right? Those are just the perfect squares. It's one way to do it, or you can just use a calculator. Okay, so we have c squared. I'm going to add these two together. So we have 1 plus 4 is 5. 4 plus 8 is going to be 12. Carry that 1. So we have 225. And because I know I have up to 15 memorized, the square root of 225 is just 15. Right? That's one way to do it. Or I can use the points in my formula, right? I could say, hey, d is going to be, let's do 8 minus -1 all squared plus -8 minus 4 squared, and we're taking the square root of it all. Okay. All right. Well, this part right here. All right. So we have 8. And we're taking negative. When we're subtracting a negative, it's like adding. So that's going to be 8 plus 1 is 9. So we have 9 squared plus right here. So we have, you owe someone 8 and you're borrowing another 4. So you're going to owe them -12, and -12 squared, that's going to be -12 squared. All square rooted, right? Well, hey, that should look pretty familiar, right? This is essentially the same thing as this right here, right? So this is me trying to highlight, hey, these are going to give you the same thing. If you feel more comfortable using a formula, feel free to use the distance formula. If you like pictures, you like the Pythagorean theorem, feel free to use that one too. So this is going to turn into 81 plus 144 square root of 225. So my distance is, again, 15. Either way, you get the same answer. Okay. All right. So that's the end of these notes. If you have any questions at all, please send me an email. I'll talk to you later.